Hello, I'm Robin Gibson, and this is the Harvard House Money Morsel. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell so you get a notification of when we're releasing a new video. I'm sitting today again with Michael Porto. Welcome back, Michael.
Yeah, morning, Robin. How are you?
Yes, good. Thank you very much.
Good.
It's Valentine's Day, so it is tomorrow, so we're celebrating that today. Michael, we had the State of the Nation address last night, and leading up to it, it was the land of all talk and no action. You'll remember the smart city that we were going to get. I don't know what's happened with that. But there was an interesting moment in last night's SONA where it would appear that Cyril did fall one way as opposed to the other, wasn't it?
Yeah, Robin. I think probably one of the biggest issues that's arisen over the last month is a subtle change in Eskom's unbundling plan, and the fact that this national transmission company wouldn't be completely separate from Eskom. It will still be essentially a 100% held subsidiary of Eskom. And even though it would be a separate company, it would still be essentially controlled by Eskom. And that wasn't what the original unbundling plan envisaged. It wasn't where we were going sort of 3 years ago. But there's been a subtle shift from Ramaphosa in that. And I think this week Business Unity or the 2 or 3 big business groups all wrote to Cyril and said, that's not good enough. You have to change that because it doesn't create the level playing field. And even some of these other rules that NERSA is trying to put through, Eskom sort of legally challenging them. So they're not Eskom. They've done a lot to get right, but now that the company is sort of under threat, they're struggling to let go. And so. Yeah, Cyril came out last night and basically absolutely confirmed that the National Transmission Company would be a completely separate entity, which it has to be because the National Transmission Company should be responsible for building power lines and buying power from the cheapest source and distributing it.
Yes.
And if you're part of Eskom, then you haven't got any incentive to buy power from the cheapest place. You're going to buy power from Eskom, and it doesn't drive down the cost of power. I was reading an article this morning about a huge project. Whether it comes to fruition or not, I don't know. I've never heard of it before, but a huge project, being mooted sort of for the Northern Cape and running power lines along the sort of Sishen-Saldanha railway line. And they're talking about building, generating solar and wind power at 1.5 cents, US cents per kilowatt hour. So we're paying 50 cents at the moment. It's 50 US cents, and so, if there really is deregulation, you get the private sector coming in. So I think there was a big win for business and for confidence in the reform process. Cyril stepped in.
Yeah. The other thing that did come out of SONA was he did acknowledge that there's a water crisis, and he's going to chair that committee.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody in Joburg is delighted to hear that, and around the country, quite honestly. I mean, we are a water scarce country, and Robin, we've had a couple of years where we've had La Nina and we've had good rains, but obviously it doesn't affect it. Well, we've had torrential rains in some parts and no rain in other parts. But yes, I mean, obviously it's not just water, it's the lack of infrastructure in municipalities. And so, again, I think you can be a bit skeptical about this, Robin, because, so they formed a national water crisis committee. Cyril's going to chair that committee, which I think is probably also a good thing. And, everybody will be reporting to him every month. I think what is absolutely required, Robin, is at a municipal level, you have to hold people to account. I mean, it's just if you don't do that, all the talk and no action,
Yes.
And basically they were just saying that they've implemented legal action against, I think, 50 municipalities, and they're now going to sue municipal managers their own personal right.
Sure.
So that is an interesting development, because I think only when you are actually really seriously facing some pressure do you start to perform, or you actually get fired and you get out the way and you make room for somebody else.
Yes.
And there was talk about obviously professionalizing the civil service. Well, that is 30 years overdue, I mean, isn't it?
And 30 years until it'll happen.
Cadre deployment has ruined this country.
Yes,
It really has. And I think, at municipal level, that is probably the one policy that has single-handedly ruined this country and infrastructure. And we can see it in our own little town like Howick where you've got reasonably good governance and people are held to account. And I'm not saying everything's perfect, but you can see that things get done and people are held to account. And that basically ensures that at least you're getting some value for money, you know. Yeah, so I mean, there is a National Crisis Committee on Water. That's very positive. There was obviously talk about crime. You know, again, on the crime side, I sort of shrug my shoulders a little
Sending
bit.
the army
and,
in, yeah.
and I wonder whether really things will change. But I think probably what SONA did do, Robert, and you know, I mean, we have been skeptical, but if we go back, you know, we look at Operation Vulindlela, and how often do we talk about this at our presentations, is that reforms take a long time. I mean, this country, reforms do take a long time. But they are happening in the background, and there's obviously there's more pressure on logistics and rail and ports and things like that. And some of the things that have been put in place 2 to 3 years ago are coming to fruition. So there needs to be more urgency. But I suppose the State of the Nation really did back the reform process, and I suppose there's a little bit more urgency in it. Whether that means anything, I don't know. But I mean, I suppose for us, at least the journey that we're on is continuing, you know. And Cyril did point out, I mean, obviously from an economic point of view, the growth is the strongest that it's been for a while, which we endorse and we obviously can see as well. And that's what we've been banging the drum about.
Government
And
finances.
and that this year should be a much better year. But it's far short of where we need to be, but at least we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know.
Michael, would you say, I mean, given what happened leading up to the SONA and Cyril's decision, that business is finding its voice and being heard a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so, Robin. I definitely think business is more vocal, and especially where maybe government's backtracking a little bit, you know, because essentially if you outline a reform process and that's what we committed to, and business is saying, okay, well, that's fine and we can work around that, then you kind of have to follow through. If you start changing the goalpost, then all that confidence gets undone again, and that confidence in the reform process is undermined, you know. So I think it's actually very important to reaffirm those things, because otherwise you're going to have this continual, well, let's wait and see, which has plagued us for 15 years, you know. And so that's the last place we want to go back to, you know. Yeah, so I do think business is finding its voice, not before time, but I think measured, Robin, in terms of, you know, not complaining about every little thing, but really complaining about where the big things are going. And, you know, business has been involved in the National Crisis Committee on Energy and things like that, and they've been instrumental in solving the problems. So now don't let us down now.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. Well, it is nice. You know, sometimes we do get very frustrated at the speed, but it is nice to know that things are sort of rolling the right way. Michael, thanks for giving us that insight. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.